Hello, so my name is Mulan. Hi, I am a naturopath who focused in nutritional therapy. I am also a mum, a graphic designer, a Buddhist, a Londoner, an immigrant, a polyglot, a person of mixed heritage, and essentially all of these parts contribute to the whole lens through which I see the world. Why is this podcast called Holism and the Whole Story? I'm going to first read you the definition of holism, which is, as per just popped up in Google, the theory that parts of the whole are in intimate interconnection such that they cannot exist independently of the whole or cannot be understood without reference to the whole, which is thus regarded as greater than the sum of its parts. Holism is often applied to mental states, language, and ecology, and in medicine, the treating of the whole person, taking into account mental and social factors rather than just the symptoms of an illness. So yeah, as a naturopath, you approach people's health holistically, as in their whole lives, all of their body systems, and you try to, see what are all the contributing factors and what's happening in the whole person as opposed to just looking at symptoms. I also think that holism kind of embodies my own philosophy of life. And I've kind of written down for myself a few values that I would like to sort of embed within this podcast and hope that they are conveyed out in the episodes as well to other people. But one of those is the oneness of life and its environment. This is a Buddhist belief, but term also, but essentially meaning that everything matters and everything is connected. Another one is Hygeia. She's a Greek goddess of health, and I have a little statue behind me over there, and it says at the bottom of the statue, all in good measure, little and often. And I think that's a lovely, lovely little reminder in all areas, not only just health, but all in good measure. I think that's a great thing I try to remember for myself. Also living a more connected life with ourselves, our friends and family, people around us, but also the land and, where we live, our communities. That's something that I try to practice and would also love to, share as a value and try to convey. And lastly, kind of, I guess, more of a purpose, but I really hope that with this podcast, I can inspire, educate myself as well, and, help people engage in other ways in their lives and feel a sense of hope, I think, in living. So why does this story need to be told, and why am I the person to do it? So I think while I was kind of training, I consider that sort of the beginning of my journey in this sort of sense. And I think along that journey, I found a few things really interesting. They kind of stood out, and I think they're worth exploring and discussing and learning more about, and also sharing. I think those are really interesting things to look at. So a few of those are, one, everything's out to kill you, which is not a very encouraging thing to start with. But, I while studying, I realized like so much of our modern world is cancer causing, like carcinogenic, also anxiety provoking, like apps, and just the way that we live in this day and age. And I think all the little things that we can do to help ourselves or, ground ourselves are definitely helpful. But it's good to know as well, I guess, what isn't helpful in our lives and around us. Protein. That's another really big and interesting conversation. I mean, it leads on to a lot of other things, but I actually come from 3 generations of vegetarians, and I grew up vegetarian, and I always questioned for myself, like, is this the best diet? My mom has very kind of spiritual beliefs around being vegetarian. I am no longer vegetarian, and I think it comes down to, people's own individual bodies for sure, but also our beliefs and, our religious practices and budget and so many factors in there. And I think it's a great topic to discuss. It also leads on to the idea I recently heard, I think it was in another podcast, that muscle is the currency of aging. And obviously, the foundation of muscle is protein. So that's something I definitely like to look into and explore. Another thing that while I was studying, there's two topics here. One is like just organic food in general. I'm a big believer in organic, not only for diet and health, but also like the way the food is produced and the connection with the land. I get really excited about that. I think it holds a lot of answers for, how we could progress as humanity in a really connected way with, the land around us and nature and solutions for climate change. But on the flip side of that, I've had definite times of real financial hardship, and organic wasn't always possible. And I think learning for myself that there's different ways that different mindsets, I guess, that you can have to really look at how to eat healthily, feed your family healthily, on a budget. I don't like the idea of elitism and like only the wealthy can afford a pure and organic diet. And actually to that fact, like even the conversation that organic is often marketed so much more expensive than, basics range in UK supermarkets. I think that's something else that should be explored and hopefully one day changed. But yeah, that was one thing on organic. And then essentially, while I was studying, I started learning all these little tips and tricks and therapeutic practices that are so simple, like so basic and uncomplicated. And it's almost a relief to kind of learn that there's so many little things that we can do that can help us to, live a more connected life, that can bring health back to us, a state of well-being. And so I think there's a lot of things, life hacks like that I'd like to share with people and discuss and learn as well for myself. So those were a few topics that I think, areas that kind of inspired me and things that I'd like to talk about and share. So from these few things, I started to realize that it was actually more about the journey as opposed to having all the answers, having the solution, having everything, written out as a formula. It's really about everybody kind of taking their own journey with health and wellness and trying to find the things that work for you and are appropriate for your life, and that you can customize as well. And I think lastly, I've only realized for myself fairly recently, like anxiety kind of sits behind a lot of my interest in health, being honest. It's actually probably what drove me into studying and looking into nutritional therapy. And, while there's a good side to that, there's a not so good side to that. And I definitely would like to shift that for myself and change. But I'd like to explore that as well. I think how anxiety has a really big role in modern life today, and, how we live with it and hopefully can live without it at some point as well. So these are generally the ideas that I'd like to share and discuss. So I do have some friends and guests lined up where I hope to cover some topics such as general health, diet, supplements, recipes, foods, fasting, stress, life hacks, and then wellness practices like fermenting, yoga, breath work, meditation, dreaming, lucid dreaming, ceremony, connection, spirituality, and sustainability, and carbon sequestration, and organic food production, and standards, and general and individual life solutions. So last question I think to answer is what drew me to this. I love podcasts. I've been an avid listener and viewer of particularly Mayim Bialik's Breakdown. I really enjoy her podcast, The Doctor's Pharmacy with Dr. Mark Hyman, and The Diary of a CEO are all podcasts that I'm really avidly listening to. I think a podcast is a great way to learn and connect, maybe mostly for myself more than anything, but I'd love to share that with other people as well and hope that they can find some inspiration and hope in there. I think I decided to do this mainly because I get really excited when I start to see sort of cross sections or things that really apply to me, but cross sections of topics that I think may look very unrelated, maybe sort of wide, but actually, there's something in there for anyone to get something out of. So carbon sequestration being a way that carbon can be drawn down into the soil, mainly through organic practices of agriculture. And, that could be a massive solution for climate change. There's quite a few studies and books on that, something called The Drawdown, which is a great book. But also, food-wise, that leads to organic food, which helps us to better connect with our diets, our health, and also nature and the land around us. So I think that's a great example of, many things having this knock-on effect in this kind of win-win sort of way. I'm a big fan of like win-win as a theory. I don't know that that's an official name, but I'm calling it that. Anyways, I'm hoping you will join me and enjoy, the conversations that we have. And I look forward to seeing you on this journey. Thank you.